Iran's ships thought they could run the blockade, but
Meanwhile,
they
the
were
Wall Street Journal
wrong.
reporting President Trump could be preparing for an extended blockade of Iranian ports.
It's going to get
Brian
longer.
Yannis has the latest.
Well, the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports is now in its 16th day. And this morning, the Wall Street Journal reports that President Trump has instructed his aides to prepare to extend this blockade with the goal of collapsing Iran's economy enough to force Iran to agree to a deal to end its nuclear program. Now, the president reportedly assesses that the blockade is less risky than walking away entirely or resuming military strikes, at least for now. This morning, President Trump posted a warning, quote, Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They better get smart soon. The post includes an image that reads, no more Mr. Nice Guy, with the president holding a gun surrounded by
think he's
explosions.
serious.
Now, Iran International reports that internally, Iran's leaders acknowledge its economy cannot withstand.
Look at this. Currency's tanking, inflation skyrocketing, chicken, beef. But will this economic implosion strategy be enough? Or is the president gearing up to do something else nobody expects?
In the meantime, the U.S. has surged more military assets to the region. Fox's General Jack Keane says military strikes, in his opinion, should resume because this blockade ultimately won't work.
Eventually, it could cause an economic collapse. But they don't care about the suffering of their people.
They must not care.
In my judgment. What we need to do is finish the objectives in terms of the military objectives that have been assigned to the Israeli forces and to the American forces, and let's finish what we started.
Now, if the general is on Fox News saying this, and he said it for the last 3 or 4 days in a row, could that mean these negotiations were doomed to fail from the very beginning, and everybody knew?
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. I mean, we're 3 weeks into a ceasefire with repeated attempts now to find a deal, and certainly a deal by anybody's definition that would be acceptable to President Trump seems to be at a far distance. It doesn't seem likely at all. And I think the reason at the heart of it is because the Iranians really don't want a deal. What they intended to do with this time period is just play us for time, believing that the political and economic pressure on the president will grow and put him in a position either to make major concessions or just back away and declare victory, and that it's all over.
Yeah, they're hoping that things get so bad in America that there's enough pressure on President Trump from within his own party and from polling that he says, you know what? I think we've done enough. We've destroyed their military. We can walk away, and at least for the rest of my presidency, they won't be a threat. But is the president serious about this whole thing, or is this just a game to Trump like the adversaries of America, the supporters of this regime, love to tell us?
So that's I think, where the Iranians are, where the president is, and likely I think the reassessment with his team will come to the conclusion that, yes, keep the blockade. We said when we went to the ceasefire, there was about 2 weeks of assigned objectives that had to be completed in that time frame. And during that time frame, Central Command, who's in charge of the U.S. war, has doubled its capability from when it started at the beginning of the war.
Now, why are they doing that if something else isn't going to happen? Why are they doubling their capacity if the president's getting played and he thinks the blockade's the only tool we got left? Is that really true?
So, and the Israelis have recovered any munition shortages they have. So in terms of
we got them too.
Our capability going forward, we'll actually be able to press a very aggressive and comprehensive campaign to complete the Prime Minister's objectives and the President's objectives for their military forces. And I think that's realistic. The objectives we've been on now and trying to make it work can't make it work. And President Trump, as we all know, Sean, is not going to take a bad deal. And the Iranians are miscalculating and underestimating him again.
Yeah, they think Trump's going to let him have the ability to go out and start enriching uranium. And if they can do that, even if it takes 10 years, 20 years, eventually in the future, they may very well decide that, hey, now's our chance. We've got a different president in America. Let's try and work on this nuclear thing and get back to where we are today. But now the question is, the U.S. has all this military capability in the region. Could something big happen in the near future that totally changes the course of this thing in a way nobody expects?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at all the attempts here to make a deal, and we've struggled to find who we can make the deal with. and I think there's been some clarification, but not completely
something's going to
on
happen.
that. The Iranians really don't want it, and that's where they are. And the one thing I would say, there will be people that argue, let's just keep the blockade in place and don't do the military operation. This is something our viewers have to understand. The people running the regime, their only objective is to survive and stay in power. The amount of economic peril that the blockade will put on Iran is real. Eventually, it could cause an economic collapse.
But if the economy collapses, if the whole country collapses, and the guys with the guns stay in power, they have still accomplished their objective. They have survived. They live to fight another day. They still rule their country. They're still the ones sitting on top of the mountain, so to speak. And if that's the case, it means that the blockade, everyone knows, everybody in charge anyways knows that it cannot be the only tool, which is why there's now double the military equipment aimed at the Middle East right now.
Donald Trump spectacularly revealed that Iran is crumbling amidst the US continued blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
Chicken up 75%.
The US president took to Truth Social saying, Iran has just informed us they are in a state of collapse.
Yeah.
They want us to open the Hormuz Strait.
But they won't sign a
possible,
deal.
as they try to figure out their leadership situation, which I believe they will be able to do. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
That's interesting.
And whilst Iran is pleading for the strait to be open, they want it done on the condition that nuclear talks are postponed, which Trump is not allowing.
Yeah, you can't do that, because if they reopen the strait, then what happens? This gives them another pressure point that they can use against the United States. And here's how that's going to work. If they reopen the strait and they have talks with Trump on everything except the nuclear deal, and they kick that can down the road and things open up, what's going to happen? Gas prices might start to come down. Oil prices definitely come down because everybody's getting oil. It's priced globally in US dollars. That will alleviate pressure. People are going to say, oh, thank God it's over. And then they can use that. They can use the way that you and I start to feel about this and the relief that we experience in our hearts, hoping that this whole thing is over, as leverage against our own president to try and build up that pressure at home and feed this narrative that the president has no idea what he's doing and that he's just playing games and he has no strategy, and 1 week it's this and then it's that. Their whole thing is to make it look like the president is confused when they're the ones that are confused.
President Trump with an update this morning after Iran proposed a deal to open the Strait of Hormuz if the United States holds off on nuclear negotiations.
That would be stupid.
Talk about a sweetheart deal.
Yeah.
Well, the president's not pleased with the offer and believes Iran isn't negotiating in good faith.
No, they're not.
Online commentators applauded the revelation, with this person saying, "Love to see it. Too bad took them so long to come to the conclusion that they don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
They could have saved themselves a lot of pain.
But they don't care, as long as they survive.
But not everyone is convinced, with this commentator saying another imaginary conversation with Iran. But commentator Glenn Beck agrees with Trump, applauding his strategy to cripple Iran.
You have to.
He said, time is not on Iran's side. Trump is using this peace deal to remind Iran that if the Strait of Hormuz isn't open fully, they will be sitting on more oil than they can produce.
So here's how this is going to work. The pressure from the oil stockpiles and the possibility of wells exploding in the ground any day now, it's not actually pressure being applied to the regime leaders, because they don't necessarily care what happens to their country, but they do care if they have riots in the streets. They do have a population that they have to pacify to some degree. Yes, they are absolutely militant towards their own population. They've shown that time and time again that they don't care about their own people. But what they don't want is another mass uprising, which could happen if nobody has any work. They've already lost 2 million jobs. We heard that earlier. And if the oil infrastructure all starts to tear itself apart and people have to walk away from work because there's nothing for them to do and everyone's just sitting around on their hands, something bad's going to happen. And it could happen any day now.
They'll be forced to stop production. And if they can't move their oil, it could ruin them.
It's going
Trump
to.
knew exactly how to choke Iran the moment the peace talks started. This is huge. Secretary of State Marco Rubio unleashed on Iran, blasting the leadership for their handling of the strait.
What they mean by opening the straits is, yes, the straits are opened as long as you coordinate with Iran, get our permission, or we'll blow you up, and you pay us.
Stupid.
That's not opening the straits. Those are international waterways.
Yep, and they want to use them to threaten the entire world. But the other question that people have is, all this military activity, could it be cover for something else that does something for America no other foreign policy initiative could do. But just before we continue, it's time to have a quick chat about something I recently started using, and that would be Rumble Wallet. If you've ever been curious about buying or investing in crypto, Bitcoin, stablecoins, USAT, or even gold-backed stablecoins, but felt like it was too complicated, don't worry, Rumble Wallet is the easiest way to get started. You can buy, sell, and manage your cryptocurrencies all in one place, and the app is super straightforward. But what really makes Rumble Wallet unique is you can tip your favorite creators like me and support the Freedom First community built on Rumble. Getting started is simple. Just download the Rumble Wallet app. Sign up with your existing Rumble account. No need for a new login. Complete a few security checks and you're set up in minutes. You can start with just a few dollars, and with MoonPay built into Rumble Wallet, you can easily buy crypto using your credit card, debit card, or even a bank wire. So if you've been thinking about the advantages of cryptocurrency, download Rumble Wallet today. You can find it in your app store, or you can use the link right here on the screen. This will also be in the video description. It's wallet.rumble.com, or you can even click the QR code. Download Rumble Wallet today. Move your assets where they belong, in your hands, under your control. Legal disclaimer, Rumble Wallet is a technology provider and not a custodial service. See terms at wallet.rumble.com. Look at this. This is a massive development. The OPEC oil cartel is collapsing, all because of the actions in the Middle East with Iran. The UAE is pulling out because they want to be able to sell their oil, and this is going to rewrite the world economy in a way that nobody's talking about, while making it completely irrelevant if Iran decides to close the strait at all or keep it shut. It's not going to matter. Watch this.
The OPEC countries saw that we were, because of those hippies, no longer producing enough oil to sustain ourselves, and they wanted to hurt us, so they cut supply drastically. They also further cut 5% every month through the next year till March of 1974.
Caused that gas
under
crisis.
The trade embargo against the U.S., where gas prices literally quadrupled for us.
Yep.
This is happening again. Obviously, it happened again with the fall of the Shah of Iran in 1979. Oil tripled again there. We had gas lines. People couldn't fill up their cars and go to work. So let's fast forward to recently. OPEC controlled almost 40% of the global production, and for years it's cut or slowed or sped up production all the time to manipulate global oil prices to their liking so they can maximize their own profits, like we saw during COVID. And they can do this because it costs them a lot less to bring that oil to market than it does here in America, probably about half, due to the fact that they have virtually no labor laws and no environmental standards. As you can see right here, they're burning like acres of tires at a time.
Wonderful.
So why does this matter to you at home?
Here you go.
With OPEC breaking apart, and no doubt this is because some behind-the-scenes talks from the Trump administration, there's no more drilling quotas. Countries can and will pump as much oil as they can to get as much money as they can. You see, the UAE...
Now they're all in competition with each other. Cartels only last until a member of the cartel decides that they're out. And once they're out and they start doing things differently, the whole thing fractures and it becomes every man for themselves, and now you have competition kicking in. But is that going to lower oil prices, or is this just something that's going to enrich the rich?
Under OPEC, was only, due to joint agreements and things like that within the organization, was only producing a little over 3 million barrels a day. But they have the capacity to produce 5 million.
Wow.
Which they're going to start doing now that they're not constrained by OPEC, which is almost entirely offsetting the Iranian production. They only were producing 3 million barrels total a day.
This is going to tank oil prices.
This is why Iran was targeting the UAE with so many strikes and drones during the kickoff of Trump's bombing campaign, because Trump was immediately in touch with the UAE about picking up the oil exports that Iran would not be able to fulfill.
And if Iran can't threaten the world by raising oil prices, there goes one of their major mechanisms to try and pressure Trump and get this whole thing to implode on the president back at home. That's why they attacked the UAE. That's why they attacked all their neighbors, because their neighbors were going to sell them out in the name of keeping their economy going.
When the blockade went into place. No, yeah, but they always
Saudi Arabia too.
It's actually remarkable. Here's the awesome part. Because the UAE is now ramping up production to compete with them, so will Saudi Arabia, who they've already said they would.
Competition's great,
right now,
man.
Only producing 7.5 million barrels per day, but they have the capacity to produce over 12 million a day. Look, if just those two countries start maxing out their production, which they can do by the end of this year.
Iran's irrelevant now.
Iran's oil market is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, that's it. It's irrelevant. They've got nothing. The regime over there, they have absolutely no way to threaten the world economy. And since they've been selling their sanctioned oil to countries like China, they have no way to continue the regime support system that used to exist between Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran. That whole thing is gone. They're irrelevant. Their ability to help the evil despots of the world wage war and aggression, that's gone too. This is a good thing for world peace, and prices are going to come down as capacity and pumping of oil goes up.
Because the region is now producing more than 3 million more barrels than when Iran was in the game 2 months ago.
Wow.
And here's the best part. All of this oil can be exported from those two countries without the use of the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh!
Here, look, you can see it. The UAE can load outside the Strait. Saudi can export to their west coast, to the Red Sea, or to the south or north of the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean to export to Europe. And Trump can maintain the blockade and literally starve Iran indefinitely. And why is that a good thing, other than we don't like them?
That's crazy.
We also don't like China. And they don't have enough oil to run their country right now.
Or to invade Taiwan. And the fascinating thing about this little map right here is that Iran's saying they'll shut down the strait. Well, if OPEC falls apart, that doesn't matter anymore. They can't do anything. These guys are losing, and China's losing along with them. And that's a good thing for countries like Taiwan and Japan, who have to put up with a militant China.
Which means they certainly don't have the resources to, I don't know, wage a war against Taiwan, to take their semiconductors away from us, or undercut us on production now, because it costs them basically $20 a gallon for fuel in China today.
That's crazy.
Which is why China's real estate market has essentially wiped out all of its gains from the last 20. Can you imagine?
$20 a gallon for gas in China. I know it's high at the pump for us here in America, but $20 a gallon. Think about that. That'll destroy anything overnight.
And it's worth less today than it was then. That's China. So just real quick to recap what Trump just did. America is now the global leader in oil exports.
Yep.
More countries are buying their oil on the dollar.
Yep.
Iran can't export almost any oil through our blockade.
No.
A little bit over land, maybe. China's not getting 50% of its previous oil. The biggest oil cartel that manipulated prices has been broken up. And because of this little 45-day hiccup in supply, half of America's domestic political opposition to drilling has now flipped over to the support side because they realize we need it. And, oh, by the way, there's also new massive political support for the new oil refinery that Trump announced months ago that he was criticized for, but now everybody knows we need.
This is going to create jobs in America. We have the ability to produce something that the rest of the world needs. Why do we not want to do that? To create jobs and benefit our economy and help people make their lives better during an affordability crisis. Any opposition to this, any support for Iran is support for unaffordability. Why? Because it raises the cost of America's existence. It empowers our enemies like China. Now we got to spend more money defending countries like Taiwan. It empowers countries like Russia. Now we got to station more troops in places like Germany. But all that we're watching right here, this rewiring of the map, has put the United States in a place where now we can engage in this thing called energy diplomacy. This means we don't need U.S. troops everywhere to the extent that we have them now, because oil is everywhere to a greater extent coming from America. This is fascinating.
Look, I've been giving you the gist of this for a while now, but remember, I told you that he had like 10 to 30 days to open the supply lines, meaning to open the Strait of Hormuz, assuming that that was the only way to get more oil to the market.
Doesn't matter now.
Trump was like, yeah, hold my beer. Pulled this rabbit out of a hat and showed us what's behind door number 3.
Yep.
I didn't even see this coming. By the way, not one word of this global overhaul plan leaked the White House the whole time.
Ooh, and you know what that means? That means the strait never has to open. Ever. It can stay closed. It can be a war-torn area of the globe. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully freedom comes to Iran, especially for their people. But if that regime wants to shut it down, well, that stopped mattering as of about 24 hours ago. See you in the next video.